The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
This morning. Welcome back to Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, your station for fresh news, smart talk all day. It is Wednesday, the 28th of February, 2024, and you are on the clock with Erin Green. Now, if today is February the 28th, that means tomorrow is February the 29th, leap year day. Since this year has been a celebrating year, I am saying that maybe we should consider making leap year day every 4 years a public holiday, right? Of course, we do all things we do is in the interest of tourism. And so maybe we can make it an international affair and start a global trend. But I want another public holiday, and why can't it be on leap year day? See, I think it's a good compromise, right? I get a new public holiday. It's not every year. It's on the fourth year, right, on the leap year. And I think we could work with that. I like it. This is a part of a larger master plan to expand how we do tourism and to take a real dive into festival tourism. Because if we have a public holiday every month, we could have a quote-unquote national festival every month. And if we have a public holiday in every month, the major celebration of that festival or of that theme for that month's festival can take place around or on that public holiday. Anyway, I was just thinking about some things. While I was thinking about where all the last jujus are for this juju season. I got a full show this morning. I have a guest in studio, and I think it's going to be a great conversation. A couple of things in the news to touch on. If I don't touch on them, I think Mr. C.A. Nuri is going to touch on them in Guardian Radio AM this morning. But joining me this morning is Mr. Link Scavella, a member of the Adelaide Gardens community, and he's joining us to talk about the impact that the Windsor Lakes project is having on the Adelaide community. So I'm going to talk with Mr. Link Scavella about this for a bit. And then there's actually a whole lot of development going on in New Providence right now. And typically, the political culture, which sort of informs political processes, not policies, right? It informs processes. So, like the Constitution informs policy, but the political culture tends to dictate how those policies are enforced or operated, right? And so, with this large number of prospective potential projects on the table, I know that the entities involved take the environmental management process seriously for their individual projects because they can't get approval for their projects if they don't hit certain standards in law, right, and accepted environmental policy. But I wonder if there is any body, in terms of corporate body, NGO, CSO, that's non-governmental organization, civil society organization, or government agency that is actively focusing on the impact of all of the potential projects. And so when a board is making a decision about one particular project, do they have the resources available from the planning of the other projects to make a sound determination of whether the project they're focused on will have a negative impact on the other projects? Whether those other projects would have a negative impact on this particular project? And whether these projects as a whole may create or cause a circumstance or an environmental shift that we did not expect. And so with everything, I think everything, particularly at the national level, where your task is to preserve the past, provide for the present, prepare for the future, every process requires this level of critical interrogation. Now, I say this because I talk about traffic all the time. It feels like there's an absence of mechanisms available for the average citizen or an NGO to engage the space of road traffic safety. But then I found out that there is a governmental body called Healthy Bahamas Council, I think. And they actually have a subcommittee that focuses on, I think it's community violence and traffic safety. And once I found the organization, then I found a whole lot of actual work being done around road safety, right? And so perhaps this organization exists, an organization that forecasts, that takes a look at, that critically interrogates not just individual large-scale developments, but how these large-scale developments can impact the island and the archipelago as a whole. And so if you are a part of that organization or a similar type of organization, I plead, I beg, like my African cousins say, I beg, you make yourself known to the public. Because there are people who are actively seeking that type of system. They are looking for the type of support that an agency like that can provide, or they may want to be a part of an agency like that, and maybe they're already doing that work and don't want to work in a silo. Anyway, there's lots to talk about this morning, and again, Mr. Link Scavella is going to share with us, or talk to us about the impact that the Windsor Lakes project is having on the Adelaide community, and then we're going to talk briefly about a town hall meeting that's taking place tonight in the Adelaide community about the development. Good morning, Mr. Scavella.
Morning, and thank you for having me this morning. Peace, God, blessings to all of the listeners.
Absolutely. Now, you're here to talk about the Adelaide community, but I want you to just introduce yourself and tell people who you are.
Will do. My name is Link Scavella Ferguson. I am the Secretary General of the United Artists Bahamas Union and former Secretary General of the Bahamas Musicians and Entertainers Union. At this point now, I am fighting two giant fights. One is with the Windsor Lake project, and the other is immigration and labor as it relates to a number of foreign artists coming, an influx of foreign artists coming into the country, bypassing all of the protocols.
Absolutely. And of course, you are a member of the legendary Backstabbers.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, I appreciate so much your contribution to social and national development. Yes. But that last accolade.
Oh, yeah.
Legendary Backstabbers. I'm going to have you back in studio to talk music soon.
Yes, not a problem.
So let's get into the conversation. How long have you been a resident in the Adelaide Gardens community?
I was a resident from the inception. It started from 2005.
Okay.
I was there when they had the official opening. And I am basically the oldest male in the Adelaide Gardens community.
Right. And so, where is Adelaide Gardens situated in the wider Adelaide community?
Well, it is a part of the Adelaide Village, but it's more in the back of the Adelaide Primary School, where the government complex are.
Okay.
Government development.
All right.
Yeah.
And so it's a subdivision,
Subdivision.
within Adelaide.
Yes.
Because I remember being a very small sand eater on the beach in Adelaide. And so I know Adelaide as a community has existed longer than that.
Yes.
Okay. And so you're on the western side of Adelaide Road,
Indeed.
but north, you're not on Liberated African Way.
No, we are from that. Yes.
Okay. And how close is your community, or how close is the development to your community?
We are basically, except for the gate that the developers put up, we are basically on the site of their
Okay.
development. We are that close. And so we are feeling all of the impact of all of the earth-moving equipment day and night. And, we hardly get any sleep because when they finish working, sometime they went up to like 4 a.m. one time. And then now, after we had the first protest, we agreed that they can go up to 7 and
PM.
7 p.m. And what they did now, after they finished that, they turn on these generated pumps, which make more noise than the earth-moving equipment at night. And so then early the next morning, they start again. So we never, there's no rest.
Absolutely. So you had a letter to the editor published in the Nassau Tribune on February the 6th.
Yes.
I'm going to read a bit from it. It's a great letter, and I suggest everybody take a look at it. And if anything, it's a good model for advocacy, public engagement around a social or community issue.
Yes.
So we can read from the article. As work began clearing hundreds of pine trees and excavating the grounds on the Windsor Lakes project, some residents complained of the noise pollution and feeling tremors in their homes. Let's talk about that particular aspect for a second.
Yeah. That right there is a fact. What is fearful about that is we live in the government subdivision where it is known that residents had to move, at least 22 residents had to move out of those houses to allow the government to address problems because the ground was unstable. They had to gut out all of those houses, and I live in one of those houses.
Okay.
So when they started this project, I was wondering how come the cabinet could approve that without considering what has happened already with these homes that they built. And so we are feeling effects from that, tremors, and our house, I don't know about the other people, we have already started to experience some cracks again like what we had before.
Okay. So, like with this particular issue, I'm like thinking, how do we resolve it? Like that particular issue, and I'm thinking this may be an instance where you have to engage the ministry responsible for housing.
Yes.
And so now it becomes a three-party discussion between the homeowners,
You're right.
the original developers of the community, and then the project developers
Yes.
to determine who would be responsible for the measures to mitigate damage to homes caused by this construction.
Yeah.
If it wasn't captured in the EIA and the EMP process, which is the environmental impact assessment and the environmental management program.
Yeah. My take on that is, had it been done properly, and I don't think it was done properly. I was there when they came to do the survey and all that. I saw they all of the trucks and stuff who come to do the survey and all that. They started damaging our green space while I was there watching them. And so when I heard that the project was approved by cabinet, I was taken aback because cabinet, they are aware. This present government are the ones that build those homes in Adelaide Gardens where we are now. They are the ones that build those homes. And when we had to move out of our house for 2 years.
Were you compensated by the government during that time?
The government took us out of our 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house and placed us in a 2-bedroom house, 1 bath. And to this day, while we were out, we still had to pay the interest
On the mortgage payments?
on the mortgage, yeah.
All right.
That was never resolved. And the reason why that was never, if we had the funds to get the lawyers to deal with that, we would have had it resolved a long time. But all of the government, 'cause I have friends in the government. They know, they are aware, you know.
So, Mr. Scavella, is it possible that in the formal process, right, of seeking approvals and approving this project, is it possible that due to a difficulty with continuity in governance, right, as when administrations change, maybe some individuals change, people are shuffled, is it possible that the agencies responsible did not coordinate the storage and dissemination or access to this information by relevant stakeholders? So, for instance, an administration 10 years ago is very familiar with the process of identifying deficiencies with the structure,
Yes.
accommodating residents while those deficiencies were corrected. But individuals who would have worked in those agencies have now transitioned to other agencies or retired. And so the knowledge exists, but it's not institutional, right?
Yes.
And so when the approval process took place, there was nobody in office at the moment to say, hey, I remember working on this project. I think we need to pause and consider this element and how we will deal with it.
You're dead right, and I agree with that. What I'm saying is, I have friends who are cabinet ministers. They are aware of the situation. So I'm saying, when this come around the board,
Right.
cabinet, they should say, I know of a situation in Adelaide, right? And so before they make the agreement, they should be saying, well, let's find out from the developers how will they work around that situation.
Or what will they require from us, the government? Like, how will
Exactly.
we partner with them
Yes.
to minimize any further damage in an area that we know is vulnerable to,
Exactly.
right? Okay. Let's go back to the article. Another issue. Further, residents complained that the debris, including but not limited to all the dead trees taken down, were being pushed back to the side of the nearby community of Adelaide Gardens, therefore creating a fire death trap and a home for rodents.
Yes. Only when the Guardian showed up to protest, they, and when it was aired, we were able to get the developers to move the debris from the fence and the area where they had it.
Right.
Because I think they realized that what they were doing was wrong. And then I understand that before they moved it, the environmental people said everything was in compliance, right? And I had a meeting with the minister, and I told him, how can they say that is what's in compliance? And I took him there and showed him what they were doing, right? They had all of the debris line up. If a fire had started in that area, everyone would have perished, including the people in Adelaide Village and the ones on the beach road.
Has there been a fire in Adelaide Village before? I mean, a massive fire?
Yes, we've had a fire in the back of where those government homes are. And I had appealed to former Member of Parliament Michael Harkitas, and this was in 2017, and he was gracious enough to remove all of the debris from the back of the homes. And just last week, I appealed to the Minister, Warren Miller, and he had the payloader move the debris as well.
Okay.
And so, but we had a number of fires in Adelaide.
See, because when you said that the environmentalists said, well, this is within compliance, right? I'm looking and I can imagine that happening, right? Because perhaps the issue isn't that the debris is piled up. The issue is that the determination was made on a system where an expectation that a fire truck or requisite, the needed number of fire trucks could quickly get to that site and extinguish any particular fire.
That was impossible at all. No fire truck could get how that was set up.
Okay.
The fire truck, actually, when the garbage truck comes through the road where we live, they have to reverse out of the corner because they cannot turn around because Windsor Lake decided to block the turnaround point. They put up a gate there.
Right.
And so no vehicle can turn around there. If a fire truck come in that area, they can only work from the front. But where the actual bush and the debris are, they cannot get to it.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
Is it possible that somebody gave them permission to erect the fence without actually visiting the location and observing, right, through assessment that this is actually a problem and we shouldn't approve it?
You're correct. Somebody gave them that. I was there when they were putting it up, and I told them they cannot put it up. And so they told me this is only temporary. I said, but it is not on your property. It is not on Windsor Lake's property.
Okay.
It's on the cul-de-sac where all of the garbage truck, the septic truck, whatever, have to turn around when they come in to do service work. And so they put it up anyway.
Okay. Absolutely. But it is causing a difficulty with regular community service, public services.
Yes.
And it has created an environment where there's a risk that fire trucks, if needed, could not get to the optimal space to extinguish the fire.
Exactly. Because if you know Adelaide is one way in, one way out. And so any major fire in the back there, the way they had that set up, had the Guardian not come there, reporters not come there and actually indicated to them, well, this is not right. And so they end up moving it back. Right? And so that put us in a more safer position, because now with the minister clearing the debris from around the homes and those debris away from where they had them, we are more safer in that regard.
Absolutely. Mr. Scavella, I've talked about the Adelaide Pines project and the Windsor Lakes development plenty, a lot. I've engaged critique about it, the cultural aspects, the environmental, economic aspects. And so today I want to bring I don't want to say fairer, right? But I have a position. I don't want to bring that position to the table today, right? I have an idea. With the amount of organic trash being generated from the project, would a compromise, or would this be reasonable if the Windsor Lakes development offered to the Adelaide Gardens community primarily and the wider community generally an industrial mulcher and an industrial wood chipper so that residents could turn that trash into cash or potentially a valuable resource for residents in the community for the duration of the development, and then you work out an agreement for the community to purchase, pay for, lease, rent, use the equipment in partnership with the development. So it's a lot of beautiful green space, a lot of trees. In fact, I have the EIA here. I was impressed by their the process of identifying what natural local trees exist, right, for the purpose of maintaining environmental balance. But would it be reasonable if, at least for the duration of the development, where residents are being impacted, that an arrangement like that was on the table?
That is an excellent idea. The sad thing is, we had spoken to one of the contractors in reference to the damage they did to to the green space.
Right.
We said, since you bringing all these heavy equipment through here and rolling on the green space, why not take some of the fill out there and press it down so your heavy equipment can move on it without damaging the green space? They said, not a problem, but to no avail.
Okay, right. So they entertain the idea, and perhaps the issue is in the lines of communication, right? And so the contractor could say that's a good idea, but he cannot necessarily authorize it.
Exactly.
Could the minister responsible or the ministry play a greater role in liaising between the community and the developer on issues like this?
I think so. I think the minister responsible for environment, having been on the site, I took him there twice, having seen what is going on. Even when one time it was at night, hearing all of the noise, right? I think he should have that influence in cabinet to say, I've been there and I see what's going on. This is wrong.
Absolutely. In terms of the noise, right? For those who can access the environmental impact assessment for Adelaide Pines Project New Providence, I think it was produced in 2021, but if you can access it, they speak to noise pollution on page 20, on pages 42 through 44, and on pages 46 through 47. Would the residents, I don't want to say be satisfied because we're not having that type of engagement, but would it be reasonable if the development put up noise barriers?
They seem to attempt to do that by putting up a lot of fill,
Right.
lining it off too, but that doesn't.
And so is it possible, now that you say that, is it possible that they attempted to create noise barriers with the dry organic trash and fill that they lined up on the border of the community, but it just wasn't an effective
Right.
option?
What I think they need to do, see, the problem is the night work.
Okay.
You see, that's the issue. During the day, most of the people are out at work. But you do this when they work up through the night. When they finish, then they turn on these pumps and the generated light cages, and all this noise is coming through our community all night until morning. Then when morning comes, then the earth moving equipment starts
again.
So there's no rest.
So there's noise and light pollution in the nighttime.
Exactly.
And we say like most people are home at night, but let's not forget that in the tourism industry, direct tourism workers and auxiliary tourism workers, they work off shifts, right? So we have a lot of people who work at night and are at home in the daytime and could also be impacted, right?
Yeah, and a serious issue too coming from the fumes that come from these diesel-operated machines. That some of the residents complain that this is coming into their homes and they're getting headaches and all that. We explained that to the developer when he came to our meeting.
Right. Is it so? Are the contractors and the construction teams accessing the project through your community?
Not now. They use our community until they were able to put up their gate close by Albany side.
Okay.
And then they put up the gate by us, and the developer is saying that is because they don't want anyone to get hurt, meaning physically hurt.
Right. They have a legal and an ethical responsibility to bound the property to prevent not just trespassers, but somebody who accidentally walked in from entering a site they shouldn't be on.
Yeah, but they should do that on their property. You see, you can't put the gate or the barrier in our community.
Right.
That's what they did wrong.
Okay.
And so when they did that, they blocked our cul-de-sac, and in effect, the service trucks and stuff cannot maneuver the way they want to.
Okay, absolutely. So, producer, let's go to a break, and then when we get back from the break, let's talk about the town hall meeting and some of the issues expected to be raised, the format of the meeting, who can attend, the time and details, and will you have refreshments?
Yes.
You know, I say it in jest, but at the same time, it's a very real part of community organizing.
You're right.
When you ask people to take time off of their regular schedule, then you consider the things that they would have been doing, and you give them some food to keep them happy and present.
Indeed.
Absolutely. Producer, let's go to a break. You're on the clock with Erin Green. We're speaking with Mr. Link Scavella about the Adelaide Gardens community and the impact that the Windsor Lakes development is having on that community. We'll be right back.
Come and receive free health screening.
Love the show? Want to give your support? Become a sponsor today. Call 302-2300 for our rates and packages. That's 302-2300. Become a sponsor on Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
It's that time of year to join the movement. It's time for the annual Guardian Media's Healthy, Wealthy and Wise Fair, Saturday, March 2nd at the Mola Marathon, starting at 10 a.m. Admission is free. Come and receive free health screenings by the walk-in clinic, fantastic product info, and sound financial advice. Participate in the exercise demonstrations by Natasha Brown, Outdoor Fitness Bahamas, and RF Exposure. There will also be a CPR demonstration by Superior Care, plus live performances by Blawdy, Johnny Cake, Shine, and Carrington McKenzie, ending with a Saxon superstar Junkanoo Rush Out. Join the movement. It's the annual Nassau Guardians Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise Fair, Saturday, March 2nd at the Moreland Marathon.
Love the show? Want to give your support? Become a sponsor today. Call 302-2300 for our rates and packages. That's 302-2300. Become a sponsor on Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
Good morning and welcome back to On the Clock with Erin Green on this Wednesday, the 28th of February, the day before Leap Year Day. Joining me in studio is Mr. Link Scavella. Good morning again, Mr. Scavella. We're talking about the impact of the Windsor Lakes project on the Adelaide community. And in the time that we're talking, Mr. Scavella is entertaining me while I think up some ideas, right? Some ideas come to mind on ways that we can work towards resolution with this project. So this evening, you will be hosting a town hall meeting.
Yes.
So let's talk about that briefly.
Yes. Some of the concerned residents, we had decided that we will do a town hall meeting, and we had invited or notified the developer and the government, the relevant government authorities about the town hall meeting. And so we anticipate that they will be there, and we expect that some of the residents who are not even being affected in the other areas will show up at the meeting this evening at 6:30 in the Adelaide Primary School.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is a wonderful, a wonderfully thick document. There's the EIA. There's lots of information in it. I will say, though, I don't know if they have taken into account their impact on the mosquito population, right, and the sandfly population, and the doctor fly population. But I just say that to say that sometimes we don't even think about the smallest of things that have a really big role in the environment. And in this instance, residents, right, have a really big role in the environment.
Yes.
So the meeting starts tonight at 6:30 p.m.?
Yes.
6:30 to 9 at Adelaide Primary School?
Adelaide Primary School, yes.
All right, and again, there will be refreshments?
There will be some refreshments, yes.
Awesome. And open to the public?
Open to the public.
What's the format of a town hall meeting like this?
In this regard, this would be our first town hall meeting.
Okay.
And so it is like an exploratory thing where we want the developer to sensitize the community as to what you're doing.
Right. So this is not a fight. This is an invitation.
Exactly.
Okay, to share information.
Right.
So let me ask you a question. Would it be helpful if the development process was amended to include the appointment of a community liaison officer for projects of this size?
Yes, I think so.
An individual whose primary, if not sole purpose, is to liaise with stakeholders in the community that the project is resident in, to not just engage residents about potential issues, but to do the work themselves to identify potential issues.
And that is an excellent idea. You're right.
Absolutely. I think that perhaps that's what's missing.
Yeah.
I had a very interesting conversation with a local intellectual, I say luminary, but tourism stakeholder.
Mm-hmm.
And he shared with me, after hearing me have a lot of conversations about tourism and the tourism product, he shared with me some of the work that he has done in attempting to describe tourism, what it is we do, for the purpose of creating more effective and efficient policies and strategies for the Bahamian government, the Bahamian people, and the tourism product. And after speaking with him, my mind shift a little bit about high-end residential developments in the country.
Yeah.
Right? They have a purpose. They have a space within the tourism product.
You're right.
Right? So I'm not opposed to that, the project in and of itself.
Yeah.
But I'm concerned that we can still create better processes for the realization of these projects.
Totally agree with that.
Are you going to facilitate or initiate the beginning of creation or the creation of mechanisms for ordinary residents to use, not to fight developers, but to create more effective relationships and mechanisms and structures for residents and developers to work together?
That's a good question, because we are not anti-development. Our issue has simply been the impact that it's having on us, and for reasons that they don't even know, because the impact study has not taken it into consideration. And how the government or the cabinet, the ones who build those homes that are being affected, should have said to them, now, we had some issues over here with these houses, and we had to cut them out and all that. And they knew, too, also that, because the engineer who came to us while they was doing this said that they were advised not to build any homes on the property where we are, because the ground was mushy and unstable. And sadly, I believe the same thing is happening where they're about to put those new homes, because that too is wetland.
Right. But from the environmental impact assessment, it appears as if they have taken that into account. I've just turned to a section 5.0, proposed mitigation measures, right? And they speak to some of those issues, the impact of noise and vibration, ecology, landscape and visual matters, occupational health and safety, impacts on neighboring communities. And then there is a segment, section 5.1, that speaks directly to the constructed wetlands.
Yeah, see, the problem with that impact, right? Whoever did that has already been paid, right? And probably spent their money. They have not done what should have been done in that area where we live, because to date, they have not said when those people build up their homes, right, where all of that water is going to come from. They're going to turn our area into swamp. None of that has been said or addressed in that, right?
In the document.
In the
You
document.
read the document?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
And so I think I was not pleased with that EIA, right? I'm familiar with how things get done in this country.
So let me ask you a question. Is it a matter that the EIA is insufficient, or is it that the criteria for an EIA need to be expanded, and that the environmental impact assessment process itself should be more rigorous and should require more information, more interrogation?
My issue with that will be the cabinet that's sitting today, right? The government that's sitting today, they are aware of the issues in Adelaide Gardens. And so when this would have come before them, right?
Right.
They would have had to say, well, what about this area here? We had some issues with that.
Right. And there's no indication that that conversation was had.
Exactly.
I mean, that is a concern. Do you expect representatives from the Windsor Lakes development to join the town hall meeting today so you have an opportunity to engage them on that particular issue about, I guess, water drainage?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, we notified them. The last meeting we had on the site, when the Guardian was there, the reporters was there, they were not invited, but the developer showed up anyway. So this time you are invited, so I shouldn't have an issue with you not showing up. Or a delegate, somebody to explain to us what you're doing.
Right. And that's why this idea of a development community liaison officer, I think would be a great idea.
I think so.
Because people are left to speculate with an absence of information.
Right, and I hope it be someone with the experience of, because we have people in that community with the experience who can be that liaison, right?
Okay.
Me, myself, I don't have that experience.
Okay.
Besides, I have a lot of matters to deal with immigration and labor.
Right.
Yeah, so.
Okay, so it's also an opportunity for the community itself to identify its inventory.
Yes.
And to organize, to create an effective mechanism to liaise with the developers.
Yes. Now, I want to put this out there. Even if it was my father, my brother, my nephew, or my son, or a number of my sons or daughters in cabinet, if you're not doing the right thing, I'm going to let you know publicly, personally, and every other way. I'm going to let you know once it's been impacting the community and it's not right. I'm going to let you know. And I have some friends in cabinet. I expect them to do the right thing.
Yes. Okay.
You know?
Okay. Well, I'm always very heavily critiquing things and developments, projects, right? Ideas. But in most instances, my focus is on deficiencies in government services where people expect that those services or agencies would provide a level of like service, right? And they don't. And that's where most of the critique sits, I think, for many people.
Yes.
I have a text here that says the entire community has a lawsuit they need to file against the government and the contractors. Is that a separate action taking place within the Adelaide Gardens community?
That is separate, but I totally agree with that.
Okay, absolutely. Here's another text. Are these EIAs monitored? Because this and I'm reading from the text, this foolishness has been going on for months with these people up 4 a.m. listening to trucks moving around, and an EIA allows wetlands to be filled in. Well, I want to say thank you to a representative from the development space who got to me a copy of the environmental impact assessment so I could begin to familiarize myself with it for this conversation and future conversations on the project. I want to say thank you to them very much. There is a section in the EIA that I did not put in my notes, but it categorizes, I think, risk in 3 stages, right? And the second medium risk is that there will be some damage, but that damage can be mitigated, or that area can be returned to its original state, right? And then the highest risk is where there's obviously damage and the environment will be changed to some extent. And so the EIA does take into effect, but sometimes I think and often I'm a culprit in this, is that our expectations of a policy are different from the actual policy. Like what we expect to happen is not what's actually laid out in law or policy. And so I expect that an EIA says any environmental impact, negative impact, then no. But the EIA process allows the developer to identify potential risks and actual risks, and to identify the category they're in, and then a determination is made of whether it's worth going forward with the project.
Well, I don't trust that document based on what I've seen, right?
Okay.
Also, the developers, they are not good neighbors in that I had to ask the minister to get a payloader to move all of that debris from the back of those houses, and the developers had all that equipment on site
That they could have used
to do that, right? But instead, they put all of the debris to make it worse, and so they're not good neighbors. They've not been playing fair, and I think it might be because of the fact that they look at us as a shanty town.
Mm-hmm.
They look the way they've been operating, and so I don't trust that EIA document for a number of reasons. I don't trust, because I was there when they were doing most of that, and I saw how their trucks, while they was doing that, they were damaging our green space, and at one point I had to get them to fix some of the stuff that they did.
So let me ask you a question. For the purpose of creating a more efficient and effective system in the future, considering that some damage may have already taken place in your community, should we mandate in law that heavy equipment operators who are clearing land or are traversing green space are required to have an environmental certification?
Yes.
Indicating that they can identify specific types of flora and fauna, that's plants and animals, in a community, and make a reasonable determination of whether they need to stop work and call an environmental agency to do an official assessment of the space to identify whether there's anything of extreme value, anything that's potentially endangered or close to being endangered in that area before they continue work or before they start the work.
Yes.
Because this is an issue that goes beyond this particular dynamic.
Yeah.
I think a major issue we have is that we send people on properties to clear properties who have no idea what the legal requirements are and what the environmental status is, right? Or can identify things that should not be cut down or mowed down.
Yes. Also, I think, why the night work? What's the reason for the night work? If your permit says these are the hours that you work, why not work within those hours? What's the deal with this night work? What are you hiding?
Is it so the process itself limits them to a certain time period to do the work?
No, as far as I'm concerned, the permit should say to them the hours. But what I'm saying, they are going above that, right? A few times they went up to about 4 a.m. And I believe sometimes it may have to do with the contractor and maybe not the developer, because I said to the contractor one time about the noise, I said, why don't you get the developer to sit with us so we could understand? He said, man, I'm not worrying about noise, right? And so I have this feeling that he is doing something.
There's some miscommunication
Exactly.
going on. Perhaps the contractor.
Yeah.
Well, because the first thing I think, why are you working in the night? Because you want to make the best of the timeline, right? You don't want to go over your timeline. You may have had some delays, so you're using as much time as you can. But my bigger concern is this: are hours of operation outlined or described in the permit, right? In the permission? Because if it's not, right? If there's no restriction on when they can work, they're going to work. But it's different if there are restricted hours and they are ignoring those restricted hours and working beyond the time frame that they should be working.
Yeah, and my question is, if you cannot do it in Lyford Key, why you want to do it in Adelaide?
Okay.
Why are you doing it to us? You can't. They know in Lyford Key, at a particular time, everything shut down. And the bad part about it is, they work on Sundays as well,
Okay. Yeah.
24/7. Because when they leave and finish, the pumps are still working overnight, and the noise
Just the noise never stops.
never stop.
Absolutely. So in this conversation, I think there are some solutions or some options that could be employed to begin to resolve some of the issues. I guess one of the last questions I have is, how much of this negative impact will persist beyond the initial construction phases?
The contractor advised me when I spoke with him, and he advised another member of the community that it would be completed, the noise sort of will be finished in 2 weeks. Well, that was in December.
Okay.
The developer told us at the press, when we had the press conference the other day, that they will be finished at the end of this month. Well, that's tomorrow. But when you look out there to see what's going on, that's far from the truth.
Okay. Okay. This has been a very informative conversation. I'd like to thank you for joining me. Let's go through the details for the town hall meeting this evening again for the listening audience.
Yes. We're going to have, we expect to have the minister there along with his environmental people,
Team, yeah.
hopefully. And we expect that the developer or a representative will be there to sensitize us about what they're doing and to update us about what they're doing. And we're going to touch on a couple other issues relative to the community that's affecting the community as well.
Okay, and the meeting starts 6:30 p.m.
6:30
to 9 p.m.
To 9 p.m., yeah.
Adelaide Village Primary School?
Adelaide, yeah.
Adelaide Primary School?
Yes.
Okay, and have you invited any local environmentalists to attend the meeting?
Well, some of the people who are in the community, they are environmentalists like Sam Duncombe and mailers, and so it is hopeful that they will be there as well.
Okay. I have another text here that says, in reference to the text about wetlands, it says, I meant how can we allow wetlands to be filled in this day and age? We all know wetlands serve a function. That's where excess water goes. If you fill those in, how did this make sense to Brave Davis, the climate ambassador? And what happened to the 250 acres of mangroves that disappeared?
Yeah.
Another mystery, maybe for another time.
Yeah, that is another case on the other side of Adelaide that the Attorney General is supposed to have been addressing and just gone silent.
Okay. So, Mr. Scavella, I would say when you leave here, I would call all the environmentalists, right? Mm-hmm. Because you then bring their expertise to the table.
Yes.
And they can and facilitate a more informed conversation between all partners.
Yes.
But what I think, for me, what arose from this conversation is that we need to lobby for a development community liaison
Yes.
officer to be assigned to each major project with the primary or sole focus of liaising with community members back and forth and developers to share concerns and information.
Yes.
And that perhaps the issue sits with an ineffective EIA, a process that should be modernized
Indeed.
and enhanced.
Yes.
And that along with that, we identify the resources, the human resources that need to be attached to this new enhanced process.
Yeah, I want to close with this by saying this. I'm going to be dealing with this matter with Windsor Lake in the community where I live, but I'm not going to let that distract me from immigration and labor. Mm-hmm. I got some issues with them, my union, and we're coming to deal with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Scavella, for joining me this morning, bringing some clarity to the issues in Adelaide Gardens community in the wider Adelaide Village.
Yes.
Absolutely. To the listening audience and to the texters, thank you for joining me this morning. I have a texter here that says, take videos and document everything.
I have all that, yes.
Right, and not for the purpose of attacking, but for the purpose of documenting and improving processes at the very least.
Yes, you're right.
Thank you, Mr. Scavella.
Thank you, too.
And thank you to the texters. You guys have a great day. On the clock with CA Newry. Sorry, my bad. Look at me being a colonizer. Guardian Radio AM with CA Newry is coming up next.